the most important thing that happened, actually, there's some good news for immigrants. Okay? A Supreme Court decision just came out. Decision just came out called Pereira versus Sessions. And what it says is, now when you get put in deportation, let me take you a step back.
Yeah.
When you get put in deportation or removal, government hands you what's called a notice to appear.
Okay.
And in the notice to appear, it lays out why they want to put you in deportation. It says, this is your name. Your name is Belgium Kim.
Yes.
You have arrived from Belgium.
Yes.
You're not a citizen of the United States.
Correct.
You have stolen chocolate from all over the world and tried to import chocolate into the United States illegally. So therefore, I'm making this up. Obviously, Belgium Kim is now a citizen. Okay. And therefore, we find you deportable. It lays out the reasons why you're going to be deported.
Right.
And then underneath, it says, this is the date, and this is the time, and this is the place where you have to show up for your deportation hearing. That's how a notice to appear works.
Okay.
Okay.
Seems logical.
Now, logical so far.
Yeah.
Now, the immigration officers generally, when they're handing you the paper, they're not the ones who schedule the deportation hearing. It's scheduled by somebody else.
Okay.
Many times, not all the time, but many times, when somebody's handed a notice to appear, it lays out you're Belgium Kim, you're from Belgium, you tried to import chocolate illegally, you are a chocolate, illegal smuggler of chocolates,
right? And
therefore that's a crime of moral turpitude to try to make people happy with chocolate, and we're now going to try to deport you.
Okay.
And then it says on the bottom, your date and place of deportation it says TBD, to be determined. And then they will mail you a letter 2 or 3 weeks later when the scheduler looks at the schedule to put you in deportation. Now, what the law has said in the past is, as long as there's proof that you received that letter and you knew where and when to show up, then that's proper service under the statute and under the Constitution of the United States, and it's proper procedure, and you have to show up. Now, the Supreme Court, in an 8-1 decision yesterday, in a decision called, and it was totally unexpected, certainly by me. If you ever asked me, would the Supreme Court ever come in favor of immigrants 8-1 in this day and age? And I said, never in a million years. But in an 8-1 decision, they said if this was their narrow holding, okay? The only person who was against it was Alito. Which guy is there as Alito? I'm not sure. That's Alito. That's the guy who was against it. Everybody else was in favor.
Wow.
All right, so that's anti-immigrant Supreme Court justice, apparently. So what they said
yeah,
it was a narrow holding, but now it's going to be broadened by lawyers like myself, judges, and everybody else. But what they said is this, because it's very technical. Now, what it says is, it is not. They said, when you're in deportation and you're charged with a crime of moral turpitude,
yeah,
okay, your stop time rule. There's a stop time rule. The stop time rule says that when you're, I hope those are not the cops coming for you for the chocolate.
They are 100% coming. You've tipped them off, Brad.
Exactly. So there is a stop time rule, and the stop time rule says is that if you've been in the United States for less than 5 years and you get served with a notice to appear, then that stops your time in America. So if you, for example, if you're being charged as being deportable for crimes of moral turpitude, and 2 crimes of moral turpitude, for example, okay, and this would be an example of how this would come into play. If you get 1 crime of moral turpitude, which is a petty offense before your 5-year anniversary, and a second crime of moral turpitude, you get put in deportation, then a second crime of moral turpitude after your 5-year anniversary of living in the United States, then your stop time rule stops the time they put you in deportation. So you would not be able to apply for any sort of cancellation of removal or any sort of waivers.
Wow, okay.
So what the Supreme Court said, now I just gave you an example of how that may work.
Yeah.
Okay? Supreme Court said is that if you are served with a notice to appear, and on that notice to appear, it does not say the time and date in which you're supposed to show up to court and the place where you're supposed to show up to court,
right.
It is not a properly issued notice to appear, and therefore the stop time rule does not apply. So now lawyers have already, and judges have already, even today, this is just recent, just within a day or two, okay, have now been saying, for people who are in deportation, who got an original notice to appear, who did not have a date and time to appear, got it at a later date, was mailed, that's not a proper notice to appear, and they've been terminating some of these deportation proceedings. Now, you could even take it one step further. I don't even know if, we'll see how it goes. Mm-hmm. But people who are deported, who haven't been physically removed from the United States, who on their initial notice to appear didn't have their date and time, that may have been an illegal notice to appear based on what the Supreme Court decision is, and maybe their entire case can be opened.
What?
And so, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to what will eventually happen with this case, but it certainly favors lots and lots of immigrants who are in deportation because the Immigration Service was never following the rules in the Constitution.
Right, and it's going to end up having huge implications on past and present cases.
That's right.
What about people who have already been deported? Is there any chance that I was unlawfully deported because I never got?
Once you physically leave the United States, unfortunately, the Constitution doesn't apply anymore. It's very difficult to bring you back. Not to say you can't, but it would be very difficult to bring you back to the United States once you're deported and saying my deportation was illegal. Not to say I haven't done it before, but it becomes extraordinarily difficult.
Gotcha.
Okay, it is so much easier if you're still physically here. Now, here is the facts in this Pereira case. Pereira originally came to the United States. It was Pereira versus Sessions. Okay. Pereira originally came to the United States in 2000. He overstayed his visa. And after he overstayed his visa, he was issued a notice to appear, but it never gave him the exact time and date in which to show up.
Right.
The Department of Homeland Security later sent him a date and time, but it was received by Pereira, and he never showed up. So he was ordered deported in absentia. He was later arrested in March of 2013 for a driving violation, and then Department of Homeland Security attempted to remove him. He didn't have now, in this particular case, for Pereira, he was out of status here illegally. Now, what the law says is if you're here out of status illegally and you're put in deportation more than 10 years after you're here illegally, and you're put in deportation after you're here illegally, you're allowed what's called cancellation removal. If you're put in deportation before 10 years, you're not.
Got it.
The stop time rule says once you're put in deportation, even if you're here 9 years, 11 months, 15 days, you're put in deportation, you didn't reach 10 years, even though your deportation hearing is more than 10 years later. Yeah. So what he was saying was, well, it was an illegal notice to appear. I didn't know when and where to show up. It didn't tell me. And now the Supreme Court, it favored him.
Wow.
Every person who has a notice to appear, I know it's very technical, but really what everyone has to come down, what everyone has to understand is that if you have a notice, if you've been put in deportation, you should have your attorney look to see if they gave you on your initial notice to appear a date and time to show up. If not, you should have your attorney making motion to terminate your deportation immediately.
Wow.
If you have been deported and an attorney was to review your records, and in your records it was determined that there was no date and time on the notice to appear, not that they sent you a letter later. And this is not everybody, but I would say a good chunk of people.
Wow.
Okay? You would have the right to reopen your case because your rights were constitutionally violated by the Immigration Service.
Wow.